Welcome all. We wanted to talk a little bit about the life and legacy of Dr. Antoinette Candia-Bailey. And the first question I wanted to ask to each of you is, how long have you known Dr. Candia-Bailey?
So we have all known Dr. Bailey the same amount of time. We've known her for 7+ years.
Indeed, indeed. And for people who've never had the pleasure of knowing who she was, can you describe to us her personality, what she was like, anything like that?
So I could take that. So she was a person who loved life. She was passionate. Her life work was about, making sure that Black women had a seat at the table in higher education and otherwise. She was passionate about her students and academia. She really took seriously her commitment to her sorority and her family. She was just a lover of life and everything, and encouraging people. She was an encourager. And so that's probably the best way that I can sum total her legacy.
Indeed, indeed. Would anyone else like to answer that?
I'll go after Dr.
Clarke, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Just light. If you felt down, she was just light. She would come in, always had a smile on her face. When she was away and we would take pictures of our outings, she's the first person to respond, calling us her sisters, always encouraging us, telling us how beautiful we look, telling us how much she missed us. Just this level of light that's just truly now as more unexplainable as it was when she was here. You just couldn't explain her light. And she was just that. She was just light everywhere she went.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, and this is Dr. Clarke. And so I echo what both Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Hines said. She was just amazing, always was concerned about others. Whenever I talked to her, it was always, how are you doing? It was always concern and asking for prayer for others. Just a very soft-spoken, one of the kindest people you would want to know. Again, just loved her students. In fact, I think part of why it was, the things that were going on at the university, she just didn't want to leave her students. That was the most important. And just meeting with her mother and her husband, her mom just talked about how, she hadn't been in a grocery store in 3 or 4 years because Dr. Bailey shopped for her, got her grocery, got her clothes, and her mom had been retired. And her mom would say, why are you buying me all this stuff? And she was just like, because, I just want to make sure you have everything. Her husband talked about how she has just made him a better person. So the world has definitely lost a jewel with Dr. Bailey.
I wanted to ask you this. What is your favorite memory of Dr. Bailey, if you have one that you'd like to share?
She was a connoisseur of food. So her and I always had, when we went to restaurants, we would always be talking about like what we're rating the food, how much we're eating. So she loved good food. And if it wasn't good, she's like, oh, we need to send this back and we need to do this and try this. So I always just remember our talks over food, and also just about, she was very health conscious. And so just talking about being healthy and making sure we went to our doctor's appointment and stuff like that. So those are just a few memories I have.
And so for me, this is Dr. Hines, just the playful ribbing. She was an AKA and I'm a Delta. And so just that playful ribbing, but never disrespectful. Just our connectivity and how we do things for the greater good. And I believe that she inspired others who was, a part of our group, who eventually became members of her sorority. I believe that it was directly her impact on them is why they joined, I believe. And so for me, and again, over food and fellowship, those are some of my fondest memories. And we always took a lot of pictures, as Dr. Clarke mentioned. So we do have things that, even though she's no longer here, we can look back on and we can reference those times.
I guess for me, we shared two things in common. We were only children to our parents. So we would always talk about our experiences of being only children. And then she was a shopper. She was very much like me when it came to that. We would go to Cowtown, which is about an hour and some change from where we live at in Maryland, over the bridge to go to Jersey. And she could shop like I did. And I think my fondest memory was her ordering these cowboy boots from Cowtown. And they were, first of all, Bonnie's legs was too small for them. And I kept saying, them cowboy boots gonna look like bells, because she tried to test her on at Cowtown. I said, I don't know, but they were really, really fabulous boots. They were fabulous. And she's like, I'm just gonna get them anyway. And so she ordered them, and she called, she's like, me and Aunt gonna ride up to Cowtown and pick up my boots, but I could not go with them because Cowtown's only open 2 days a week all year round, Saturdays and Tuesdays, and I just couldn't go that Saturday. But I told her, I said, them boots are gonna look like bells on you, because them little tiny legs you have are gonna be ringing every time you walk in these boots. But she was a shopper. We were in Cowtown literally all day, and it was about 7 of us, and everybody that met her enjoyed her. And felt the same level of pain I felt when I had to tell her she was no longer here. So
I also think we should give a backstory, and I'll let Dr. Hines do that, as to how we even knew her.
Okay.
We didn't even start with that. We talked about knowing her, but I'll let Dr. Hines talk about how we came to know Dr. Bailey.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. And so we met, as we said, it was a little more than 7, actually more than 8 years ago, by way of a Facebook group. There was a PhD group that we were all in. At the time, I only knew Dr. Clarke. And so Dr. Bailey was new to Maryland at the time, and she had reached out via post, and she was trying to connect with other ladies who lived in the area. And so when I saw Maryland, I was like, oh, I'm in Maryland. So we went to the inbox, and, we had a little chat around the post, and then we went to the inbox, we exchanged numbers, and, we talked about doing a meetup. And so I said, well, look, I have a friend who is also a PhD sister in Upper Marlboro. That was Dr. Clarke. And then from there, Dr. Kennedy joined in, and there was a couple of us. And from there, it was just this pseudo sisterhood that was birthed. We met regularly. We've been to each other's homes. We've met, each other's family members. So it was beyond something topical. It was a real connection. And that's how we met, Facebook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you this. Take me back to the time when Dr. Bailey first learned that she would be working back at her alma mater at Lincoln. What was that like, to be able to do the work that she'd been dedicated to for years, to be able to do that same work back at the university that helped nurture her growth?
So I think this was definitely her final stop. Everything had just come full circle. I remember she and I talked in April, and she was just over the moon, ecstatic, and just ecstatic because she knew the brevity and what she would bring to that university. As both the doctors said, she absolutely loved those students. That was just her mission. And so I reached out and just congratulated her, and I told her she was a rock star. And she said, we all deserve a seat at the table. And she was just so excited. She had so much hope and just so many things she wanted to do and bring to that university. And again, this was the final stop for her. It kind of wrapped up her career. You know, where this was going to be it. This is where she was going to retire. This is where she was going to really make her mark, complete and finish her mark in the world. And unfortunately, the light just went out.
Indeed. Um, I wanted to, and I know this is difficult. I did want to ask, when did you all begin to notice a change?
So,
Did you? I didn't. I didn't see any change.
and that's the
We
thing.
We were
No
posting
one saw
pictures
it
up
coming.
till December the 25th, and it was the same thing as every picture. Every time we're out, Bonnie's the first person to post. Always the first person. We could be guaranteed, and it was always something enlightening, something kind. How are you gonna know from a post when she's saying? And she said the last post on the 25th was she was grateful for Facebook bringing our sisterhood together. And I was like, well, that was full circle because, yeah, we did start at Facebook, but not never. I'm still on Monday. I'm still on that Monday. I'm still on that Monday. I just don't think I processed from that Monday to even today.
I
I
think as Dr. Kennedy is saying, just no one saw it coming. Now, if I had to go back and kind of look at her Facebook posts, the last 2 weeks, there were signs, but even with those signs, you still just you couldn't see it coming, and I think that is why it's so hard to process, and so many people are just so devastated because we didn't see it coming.
Yeah, because, earlier mentioned that she was an encourager. So a lot of the things that she said, as you look back over things leading up to that, could have been implied differently, that, you just didn't know. And then, after the fact, the pieces started to fit, but there was no indication.
As far as justice in this matter, what would each of you like to see occur to at least provide some modicum of justice with Dr. Bailey?
That's hard. Let me tell you why. Because justice is in the eye of the beholder. It really is. It is, as much as we want to we try in our own minds to make it finite. I know that for me not to zone in too much, what I want to see is true introspection about what occurred and true change. And change in the context of meaningful change, because people deserve better than what they got out of this, including my friend. So, I would like to pinpoint it, but I don't, for myself, to keep my level of sanity about this and to, be angry but sin not, is to say that what I want is true investigation, introspection, and I want true change that is so meaningful that that her life truly was not in vain as a result of what occurred. That's how I'm looking at it.
Oh, so for me, I'm probably the renegade here. I want them all to crash and burn. I want the president fired, the board of curators, all of them should be gone. And I will echo Dr. Kennedy, definitely true change. There is information that I am hoping that you will become privy to that I'm just not in a position to kind of talk about right now, but definitely there was so many things that was going on that campus that they really need to shut the campus down and just start all over again. And I won't rest until there's justice. In fact, we are talking about doing a nonprofit in her honor and working with women who are African-American women in particular, who are experiencing bullying in the workplace. And just we already now kind of mentor women who are getting their PhDs. So we want to just make sure that we're going to be continuing the work so that her death will definitely not be in vain.
And for me, I'm a mix of the two. I believe that even with everything that has been stated in terms of what could be done, at the end of the day, she's no longer here. And so, how do you really reconcile that? But I as well hope that full investigation commences, that it is done by someone who has no interest, and that, I'll just leave it at that. But I do feel like everybody who had a hand in that should be terminated immediately.
You touched on this, Dr. Clarke, about the pressures that Black women face in the workplace, whether they're at universities or corporations. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of bringing awareness around this issue of Black women continuously being disrespected in the workplace?
So absolutely addressing it head on. We need tools. And I can speak to it, but I think Dr. Kennedy can articulate it much better than I. So again, I'm kind of the renegade of the bunch. So I go in blazing, kicking doors, knocking people down. And Dr. Kennedy does a much better job with strategizing. So we have to have strategy, because we can certainly go in blazing, kicking stuff down. That's just not going to work. It is unfortunate. We have to make sure that we're finding allies within these institutions. We have to make sure that, first of all, you have a white man, and not being disrespectful, that is heading a HBCU university, who was not at all equipped. The board of curators talked about providing him resources so that he would be able to lead. He should have never been in a position. And so making sure that we're empowered to lead, making sure that we have the strategies to fight, making sure that, those around us are prepared to lead, being on boards, making sure that we're having a seat at the table. All of those are paramount for the work that needs to be done. Dr. Kennedy, you want to, or Dr. Hines?
Sure. So outside of just having strategy, what I think is so that really just crossed my mind was that in her mind, Bonnie suffered alone. And I think that in this post-COVID situation, because at any institution, if you're not there every day, it can feel like some level of isolation. And because people are not so quick to ruffle feathers, make waves, they sit in this level of isolation in the midst of these things. And so, as Dr. Clarke said, I just believe in strategy. One, I'm always talking about, how are you? Are things okay? I make myself available, although I'm in a telework environment. When I'm in the office, my 2 days a week, I walk around. How are you? How you doing? Not because I need to know anyone's business, but I know the level of isolation, especially for the women at my job who are leadership position. And I know what the row above them looks like, and it doesn't mimic what it looks like on their level. And so I think it's just necessary to make yourself available for people to just talk to you for whatever reason they need to talk to you. And then for them to also know from me, because my background is in alternative conflict resolution in the virtual workplace. That's what I wrote my dissertation on. For them to know that I understand conflict and I understand it in any way you want to look at it, whether it's peer-to-peer, culture, the dynamic, but being available, because people don't talk about it. So you get these silos. Who was my friend talking to? Who did she have available? Who walked up to her to say, hey, are you okay? Are you doing well? Because it doesn't sound like that, because look at where we are. And so I'm behooving folks out there that, make yourself available. It's more than just having a seat at the table. Are you available so other people can get seats as well? And that means being available so that there's balance in mental health, balance in the workplace. And then, as Dr. Clarke, said, strategies to help you maneuver and navigate through all of these cogs that occur in the workplace that Black women, unfortunately, have to continue to fix, bob, weave in order to just do their job, and then have to do their job 10 times better for them to even be halfway great. So I want folks to do that. There are people that are in a workplace that have these amazing skills of just listening to folks and being in tune with things. And that's the best way to get your ideas to be brought across one another. Or you'll find that you're both going through the same thing and you got different managers. Wow, I didn't know that manager was like that. So I want folks to do this. It's just so important. I don't think we talk about it enough. I think there's a lot of fear in the workplace among African-American women, even a fear among other African-American women. Can we trust them? Are they going to do what some of the people on the curators were African-Americans as well? There's so much there, but I just have hope. Because again, just to keep myself sane, I have hope that this can get better because of our friend. And now it's making us think more outside the box. How do we get more people to get there without having to have this happen?
And I think Dr. Hines would be really good because she actually experienced bullying in the workplace.
Yeah.
So what would you, Dr. Hines, have needed?
So, and that's what I was going to say. I think that this is a call to action for all organizations, government, all organizations. Look at their policies, write real policies that hold people accountable. As Dr. Clarke mentioned, yes, this, in fact, when we met, and I've talked to Bonnie about this, I was going through the same thing, the exact same thing. I am here, but I was going through the exact same thing because you couldn't talk to anyone. You couldn't trust anyone. People polarize you when you are going through things. Nobody wants to be bothered. Everybody thinks you're the problem. It's in your head. You're the problem. And so there is definitely a need to look at the policies that are in place, have accountability, where these managers, these senior level executives are held accountable, because everything that you have to go through stops at them. And so, people have ways of covering up things. People have ways of derailing things. And so I think this is something that everybody should be looking at, because it is a horrible feeling to go to work and to know that something is going on, but you don't know. There's things going on around you, but you don't know what. And so I can only imagine the level of pressure that she felt, because I know what I felt.
What would you like the world to know about Dr. Antoinette Candia-Bailey?
Oh, you're asking. Okay, you go. I'll go ahead.
I would like them to know that she was a trailblazer. She was a woman of strength. She was a woman of courage, and she was about change. And I believe that, sadly, change is going to come. It's not how we would have wanted to see it. But I believe that in all of this, at the end of this, there will be a change because of the call of action that will cause institutions to look at how things are done. We can't afford to keep having this happen. Just can't.
Would anyone else like to add to that?
Dr. Kennedy?
She was her ancestors' dream. She was everything that our ancestors would have ever wanted and hoped for us. She just was that. That's the best way I could put it. She was her ancestors' dream. She achieved everything that blood, sweat, and tears that built this country could ever want from someone. Was Bonnie.
For me, I just think she was just amazing. Such a kind, sweet spirit who cared much more for others than ultimately she cared for herself. And I think, unfortunately, she went down as a martyr. Kind of took one for the team. That's not what I would have wanted her to do, but I think as a result of what has happened, things will absolutely change. Things will never be the same. And I think they're going to change for the better. She has definitely, the world has lost a light in Bonnie. She was just amazing. And I wish she knew what everyone else knows. It's just the people who have just posted. She doesn't even realize the lives that she's touched. Women, men are just writing how things she didn't know. She showed up in their lives and she had no idea of the impact that she had on this world. And I just wish she could have known.
Dr. Clarke, Dr. Hines, Dr. Kennedy, thank you so much for taking the time to shed light and let everyone know how phenomenal Dr. Antoinette Candia-Bailey was. I really appreciate that. My heart goes out to all of you, to her family, to the Lincoln University community and the other universities that were blessed to have her. Thank you so much.
And thank you for doing this story. And yeah, just let's keep it out there. And if there's anything you need from us beyond this, definitely let us know. So thank you for taking the time out to even keep the story, to do the story.